Well, next we have for you a high energy panel of marketing professionals to help you tune up your own marketing approaches. The panel will be moderated by Kathryn Larson, who is a reporter for Spectrum News One. Kathryn, good morning.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So great to be here and getting to chat with everyone. Yes, as you mentioned, I'm a reporter with Spectrum News One, Wisconsin, and thrilled to get to serve as the moderator for today's marketing panel. Joining me are Tara Ingalls. She is the, excuse me for one moment, she is the owner of Tingals Graphic Designs, Kelly Tempesta, Advanced Advertising Sales Manager for Spectrum Reach, Sarah Hurley, owner of Weber Marketing, and Kathryn Wundrow, Vice President of Accounts at The Digital Ring. As always, as we've been discussing, if you have questions, be sure you enter them into the chat pod, and we will, of course, leave some room at the end to address them. Let's get started. Sarah, I was hoping we could begin with you, if that's all right. Wanted to know, what are 1 to 2 critical elements in a marketing plan that a business owner should be examining right now, and how do those differ if her business is in survive, thrive, or grow mode?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you to SCORE for asking me to participate today. I'm excited for this morning. And it's an interesting question that picks up actually with Secretary Hughes of entrepreneurs don't like process and they don't like structure. We just go. And that's true. However, when we're in an environment we are right now, and when we're evaluating our marketing activities, believe it or not, marketing success is not necessarily defined by the greatest digital plan or graphic designer. What really drives marketing success is if you go back to the basics and hop back a few steps and you think about your business goals, whether you're a business of 1 or you're a business of 100. Right now, my biggest advice for marketing success for any business is to hop back and take a disciplined approach to your business goals, your marketing strategy, and your marketing plan. So if you think about your business goals, they have nothing to do with marketing output. It has what as an overall view of your business. So if you go to the next slide, please. Oftentimes on the left-hand side, I hear what I describe as generic business goals: drive sales, get more customers, increase profitability, right? Those sound like business goals, but I'd encourage the audience today to spend a little time to push those generic business goals to be more specific. Drive sales in what? What area of your business, what product, what category? What about generating 5 cross-selling opportunities per month with existing clients? Doesn't that sound and feel a little bit more specific and gives a little bit more direction? If you go to the next slide, please. Absolutely. If you are in thrive, grow, or survive, that makes a difference of what your business goal is. So at the bottom right now, some of us are in survival mode. You need to, maybe a business goal is generate $1,500 of sales to pay your rent. And that's a real business goal, and it's a reality of right now. But think about, okay, how am I going to build or drive $1,500 of sales? So if you go to the next slide, you have your business goal of generating $1,500 of sales just to make rent right now. You need to form a marketing strategy. I'm not going to talk too much about marketing strategy. Follow me on LinkedIn or my website, because I'm actually formulating an article right now of how small businesses can create a marketing strategy. But your marketing strategy is your approach to how you're going to achieve your business goals. But then to your question of a marketing plan is your roadmap. So that's where sort of the fun stuff starts to come into the marketing world. Radio, billboard, digital, my website, content, what am I going to do? So in this right now, what I would suggest, if you have a bunch of ideas all over the place in your head or on paper, if you go to the next slide, what I tend to suggest for folks in terms of evaluating your ideas that you want to put in a marketing plan, number 1, alignment to your business goals. If you have a business goal of capturing market share in the Middleton area, does radio really make sense for you to capture attention in the Middleton area? Are you being proactive or reactive? Are you being proactive with your ideas and your approach? Or are you being reactive because your competition is doing it? How will you measure and track results? This is something these last 2 points are really critical for any entrepreneur to take into consideration. Even if you hate analytics, if you hate spreadsheets, if you hate analyzing results, you have to understand it because it's your investment. A lot of times you'll partner with somebody on that, but it's still your responsibility to understand what you're tracking, what you're measuring, and then what are you going to be doing with the information. If you send out an email blast, what are you going to do with the open rate? What are you going to do with the view through of people that are actually clicking through? And so what is something you really need to ask yourself when you're investing in a marketing initiative. The last point is, do we have somebody, or do I know something enough in order to manage and track this myself? Instagram, Snapchat are really hot social media platforms right now. If you are not on those platforms, you are not in a good position to run that from a business perspective. So if you're thinking social media and you're not a user of LinkedIn, but you think LinkedIn would be good for your business, get on LinkedIn for yourself as your own brand, get to know the platform, understand it, and then move on to your business.
Sarah, I think that's an excellent point, what you're talking about here with the Instagram and influencing and all of that, because that kind of leads into, Tara, I'm hoping you might be able to talk about, really knowing and honing in on what each business's special sauce is that makes it stand out, so it can be standing out on all of those digital platforms.
Hey, everybody. Tara Ingalls with Tingals Graphic Design. So for me, my definition of branding is, defining how you're unique in the marketplace and creating messages and strategies for graphics that best communicate that uniqueness on the right platforms to reach the right target audience. So, everybody has great customer service, affordable pricing, and friendly staff, of course. But really, we need to dig a little bit deeper into understanding what the nuggets are in what I consider the 4 Ps: people, process, products, and pricing. So under the people tab, like, what skills do your people have that no one else does? Do you have ongoing, education, or do you have training that they use to stay up to date? How long have they been with your company? The longer they're with your company, the longer, the more established they're going to be in understanding who you are and the target that you're working with. The size of your team. So the size of your team could technically be small, and that could be an asset because you don't have a lot of overhead then, so your pricing can be less. So think about the people in your company and what are those golden nuggets that your company provides. The second is process. So how easy is it for people to contact you? How easy is it for them to obtain an estimate? Is your client onboarding process super easy to for your clients? And the key word there is easy in today's day and age. If it's difficult or it's a hurdle, people will just go to the next person on the list if they can't get a hold of you. And then again, how do you stay in touch long after the project or service is completed? What is your process for follow-up? Things like that. Under the products tab, so what does your product feature, or what problem does it solve that your competition's doesn't? What is it, what does your product or service do that your competition hasn't even thought of? What solutions does it provide? What headaches does it take away from, the pains that people are dealing with in their organization? So think about your products in a way, or products and services in a way that, again, is different and unique. And the last one is pricing. So how does your pricing model different? Maybe your prices are lower, but why are they lower? Maybe you offer financing, or you have a payment plan or deferred payments. For example, my company in COVID, we decided to offer a promotion that all website design products, you could design the entire website and not pay for it for 90 days. People had a ton of time during COVID, but they didn't necessarily have the income. So that was a way that we pivoted our pricing structure to be able to offer a product that was very high in demand, especially e-commerce websites, and people didn't have to pay for them, for 90 days. So that was how we kind of pivoted in that area. So those are kind of the 4 areas that, I would ask you to think about your company. And again, different than other people. If other people are doing it, it's not a uniqueness that you can market for your own business. And if anybody has any questions on that, or they want further information, I am happy to do 15-minute consultations as it pertains to marketing in the branding sphere. If you go to meetingwithtara.com.
Oh, that's really good to know. Tara, I'm curious if you could chime into, I know you mentioned COVID with this. Do you see the media landscape today changing with COVID, and where is it going?
Well, for sure. So, I mean, I have built and designed my company based on networking and word of mouth, and I can't network right now, which is really hard for me. So I would just encourage you to think about how, if you make a list of how your business has come in prior years, and then figure out a way to somehow pivot that into something that would be online or virtual. So for me, networking, if you're involved in chambers of commerce or other affiliations, they have tons of networking opportunities on Zoom to, again, network with people. I would say take advantage of the private chat, reach out to people individually, take screenshots of the participants, and then link up with them on LinkedIn later. So there's a lot of different ways that I think you can maintain that top of mind awareness, even during COVID, when they've taken away, or the scary COVID has taken away our livelihood to meet with people in person. So.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Would you, I'm just throwing this out there for any of the panelists, would anyone like to weigh in on branding and possibly standing out from competitors right now, especially, when we're discussing all of this during a pandemic?
So I think, along with what Tara was saying, is find your unique selling point, and a way to, from a branding perspective, is think about it from the consumer standpoint, not your internal language. I think as marketers sometimes, and business owners, we get stuck in our own mind of how we refer to our products and services, that we don't stop and think our consumers or prospects that were not yet our customers think about us. So I think back to her products and pricing. It's your language, right? So branding is not only the look and colors of your logo, but it's how you're communicating your business and yourself and your products and your services. The other thing from a graphical standpoint is be consistent. Make sure that any graphic that you have out there is consistent with whatever else or whatever other platforms you're out there. So be in the consumer side in terms of language, and be consistent with your physical or graphic design.
Sarah, dive into that a little more. Is that more difficult now than ever before to be consistent right now, having that brand message on point?
I think it goes back to entrepreneurs. We just go, right? And so we go with whatever we feel like we have to do to pay the bills, or we get excited about something and we go. The biggest thing right now is it's not more difficult, but it's difficult because we have to take a disciplined approach and sometimes hit the pause button and think, is this right for me? And is this right for my business? And if it is, a lot of times doing less is better. If that makes sense. So if you don't need to be everywhere, you don't need to be on all 12 social media platforms, pick the one that you're comfortable with and be great at that platform. And you'll see a far greater return on your investment of time than if you try to spread yourself across 12 different platforms.
I love that idea of not scattering your resources, really keep focus. Okay, let's shift focus, if we can, to messaging and interacting with potential customers, because as we know, it's all about accessing and adapting to changes in consumer behavior, right? I'm hoping we can talk with you, Kelly, just a little bit more about that.
Thanks for having me today. Yeah, I think just kind of piggybacking on the previous comments, your business goals are set, your brand has been established. Now what? Back in the day, we had a couple of really good options to reach the masses of people. We had TV, we had radio, newspaper, billboards, yellow pages. The landscape is so tremendously fragmented now. And one of the things we're hearing a lot about right now is connected media. And especially during this time, we know that the landscape has shifted tremendously. So we're seeing people are gravitating more towards watching television than ever before, although that's shifting a little bit. Television has always been a big brand builder. It taps into your emotion, it taps into sight, sound, movement. Commercials help us feel a certain way. They can make me hungry when I'm watching those fast food commercials. I feel patriotic when brands are pulling at my heartstrings. or I feel secure when my local insurance agent is going the extra mile to make sure that I'm safe and my property is protected. And so I think, when we look at media connected consumers, like I said, they are spending more time with television, but that's shifting. And, so we see now, especially during COVID, television has become our office mate. We have it on in the background. There's actually studies out now about TV, how many people are watching TV with sound on or sound off. The average home has about 11 connected devices. And so my question, what does your house look like? How many phones, computers, smart TVs do you have? The other piece there, about 70% of us at night are watching television and multitasking. So we're on the internet, we're researching products, we're reading stories, we're watching short videos. Go to the next slide. When you look at, other options that you have as a consumer, how social are you? The average person is spending about 2.5 hours a day in social spaces. They're checking in about 8 times a day. How is your business playing in that space? If you're B2B, are you actively engaged with LinkedIn? If you are a consumer-focused brand, do you have a strategy with Facebook and Instagram? Are you pushing content to your customer base? But are you also acquiring new customers by using the space? People are highly engaged in these spaces and they're looking for suggestions, recommendations, want to stay connected more now than ever. Next slide. So video first, we talked a little bit about this just a moment ago. Consumers retain about 95% of a message when they watch it in a video compared to 10% when reading it in a text. So the question, does your website have video on it? Are you active in YouTube? Are you running a TV commercial? Video doesn't always mean television. I think integrating video into an email blast, click here to see the video, click here to learn more. More customers would rather learn about a product by way of video, and they want to see more video content from their brands. Next slide. So creating an effective marketing strategy, I think first and most important, identify who is most likely to buy your product or service. Sarah tapped into this. If I own a business, my ideal customer may not be what I look like. It may not be somebody who's of my age, with my family type, all of that stuff. You really have to understand who your customer is and drill down, as precisely as you can. In our media world, we talk a lot about that age 25 to 54-year-old demographic. That's a family reunion. It's not your ideal customer. So understand who your customer is. And know that your habits are not always the same as your customers. I have a client right now actually that is an auto dealer that buys a lot of sports. Their vehicles are primarily targeting towards women. There's a huge miss there. Women do watch sports, but they also tap more into lifestyle features and news and information. So make sure that you are where your customers are. And then finally, reach them everywhere. Is your target customer likely engaging in social media? Does it require research? Do you need to drive brand awareness or drill down to the point of purchase right now? I think it's really tremendously important to understand who your potential customer is and make sure that your media placement aligns up with where they are at the time, in the purchasing funnel, which is a great segue for Kathryn.
It absolutely is. We've got one more minute with you. I'm just curious about that story that you were telling me about the sports, the gentleman who wanted to advertise with sports. I'm just curious, any ways that you can perhaps sway that individual or ways that you can encourage them to maybe look at other potential options?
I think so. I think, in this conversation, we were talking about sports. And the question was, who really drives the vehicle or who's really buying the brand? This vehicle, these sets of vehicles are more targeted towards women. Okay, obviously women watch sports, but where else are they? Are they listening to the radio as they're driving their kids to work? Are you able to capture them there? Are they online researching product, looking at weather, stuff like that? Are you using data to inform your decisions to help you zero in on where else that potential consumer is spending their media time? And are you tapping into those sources rather than just sports because that's what you love to watch?
Kelly, thank you for that. Let's dive in a little bit more with the relationship between brands and their customers with Kathryn Wundrow. Thank you so much for talking with us a little bit about the shift to more consumer-centric messaging, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kathryn. I think I loved what Kelly was just saying, because I think it gets at a really key thing, and that is you can't always do what's most convenient for your company or your brand, but rather you need to do what's best for your customer. And I think you need to put them at the center of your marketing and work backwards from their needs in order to figure out how to best reach them. So if you want to go to that next slide, actually, for me, one of the tools that we like to use at our marketing agency is a customer journey map. And I'm going to show you a few of them throughout my slides. The actual format that you use isn't the key here. I think it's the practice of mapping out what your customer's experience is, how all of your marketing touch points fit together, and being sure that each one of those is driving them toward the ideal customer behavior. And I think that first step then is identifying what the ideal customer behavior is. And this goes back to what Sarah was saying earlier. You can set business goals, but you really need them to be specific. You need them to be measurable, and you need to understand at the end of the day, what do you want your customers to do? For some of you, that might be fill out a form and provide your contact information so that I can follow up. For others, that might be make a purchase of my wonderful soaps that I have in my e-commerce platform online. But understanding at the end of the day what you need for your customers, and then working backwards from there to map out what that customer journey is that gets them to that end point. For a lot of the clients that I work with, I recommend using the sales funnel to do that. So, starting at that awareness point and understanding what's the first marketing touch point that I'm using to reach my customer. Is it a paid digital ad on Facebook? Is it, me speaking at a webinar like we are today? And then mapping out and figuring out what's the very end of that journey. Maybe it's loyalty for you. What are you doing at the loyalty end of that sales funnel? Are you sending out a newsletter? Are you trying to engage your current customers with your blog so that they'll be repeat customers for you? And I think then, if you want to go to the next slide, what you can do from there then is assess the areas of weakness. So once you've really mapped out that entire customer journey, you need to pinpoint your focus. And I think this is key right now during COVID. COVID has impacted a lot of our businesses, and it can be overwhelming to try and think, where do I take my limited marketing dollars and my limited marketing resources to focus my energy and what I should really be doing. And I think that by mapping out that customer journey, you can then look at it and say, okay, where is that abandonment rate happening? Where are my customers falling off? Is it that they're never clicking on my ads to begin with? Is it that they click on my ads, but they make it to the website and they don't get past that home page in order to actually put something in their cart and check out? And once you've figured out where that abandonment is happening, then you can focus your priorities, and you can take it even 1 month at a time and say, okay, for this month, I'm just going to focus on that customer journey that I have on my website, making sure that I have all the right information on the homepage that's pushing them to the checkout, or making sure that I'm pumping people into the funnel with compelling ads at the front end. So once you've set those priorities, then you can start to tweak that customer journey and get it to a place that really guarantees that you're pushing your customers from the top of that funnel all the way down to the bottom. And I think that, then I would say making sure once you've got that all mapped out, that you've created something that is compelling and customized to your customer. So let's get back to what Kelly was saying, but we really have to put our customers at the center of that journey. Right now, they're getting bombarded with advertising. And in order to cut through that noise, you have to understand the psychology of that customer, what their pain points are, and how your product or service can really cut through that for them, and tailor your message around that.
This is just like what we do when we tell a story for reporting. We put the face to the story because we know that that's how we can drive home that larger message. So certainly important to make them the hero, and love what you had to say about that. Kelly, let's turn to you. What final takeaways can you offer attendees when it comes to the relationship between brands and their customers?
Yeah, so I would just reiterate some of what Kathryn just said. People love personalization. They appreciate relevancy. So if you're able to find people where they are in the purchase journey and tap into that, you will hit a home run. First question I would ask is, are they familiar with your brand? If not, start there. You absolutely need to create a need or develop a want for your products or services. And then that second question, what makes you truly unique? What is your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why would somebody want to do business with you? tap into that and tell them why they should buy your stuff. Help them find you everywhere they are active and really understand who your consumer is, who your customer is, and duplicate that to reach more new people like them. Or if your ideal customer that's standing in front of you, if your ideal customer doesn't match who's coming into your store, then you need to pivot for sure. And again, messaging is key and media placement is paramount. And one of the other things I would say is take advantage of some of the freebies out there. So do you have your Google My Business set up? Are you updating that frequently? I found especially during COVID, stores were shifting hours. They weren't open as much. I use Google My Business all the time to understand, is my local store doing their normal hours or are they changing their hours? So, and then the other thing there, tap into loyalty. So ask your customers to post Google reviews. Post them on your website. We're looking for validation that what we're doing is the right thing. And if you can provide that through posting reviews and having people say good things about your business, do that. And if they say bad things, respond immediately, because people appreciate the fact, we're all human, and you may do something that's not on par for one of your customers, but if you respond and help people understand where the fall down was, they'll forgive you for that. So take advantage of some of the stuff out there that's just available to you that you don't have to pay for, as well as some of that media stuff that you can tap into to really drive your brand and grow your business.
Very, very good idea, Kelly. Before we wrap up today, want to make sure we take just a few moments to address any questions that have come in. If you do have any ideas or questions, get those in as soon as you can. I wanted to ask the panelists if they'd speak to something that Missy Hughes was talking about. She said that entrepreneurs need to make structure and carry it through. So how do each one of you do that?
I go back to I'm my own worst enemy. I have to go back to what is my goal. And am I talking to, and what I was going to follow up with is the difference between customer and prospect. Is it better for me to spend my time retaining a current customer, or is it better for me to business development towards a prospect, somebody that I'm not doing business with? So if I go back to Kathryn's customer journey, is my email going to prospects or is it going to customers? Where is my greatest return on my investment? If you have multiple products or services and you have customers only doing business with you for one service, your greatest return on investment might be going back to them and trying to upsell them. So for me, how I carry it through is I have to constantly remind myself, what is my goal and what is my greatest return on investment of my time?
That makes so much sense. Anybody else want to chime in on that question?
Yeah, I think one of the tools that we use is audience segmentation. So during COVID, you may have one segment of your audience that's really impacted and no longer a strong audience for you to go after, and another that all of a sudden has become that much more important to your brand. And so I think first and foremost, segmenting that audience, whether it's by demographics, psychographics, geography, but really understanding those niche details of each of the different people who might be engaging with your brand, and then figuring out how they've been impacted by COVID, if at all, and then shifting your focus, kind of like Sarah was just saying, to double down on those that are purchasing right now and throwing more resources at that audience. And I think carrying that through involves making sure that you have really clear brand personas. So really understanding the psychology behind each of those consumers. And before you put out any sort of marketing communication, going back, reviewing that brand persona and saying, okay, am I speaking to this person right now? Am I really clearly communicating how their needs are going to be addressed by my product? And I think that can help you become much more efficient with the way that you use your marketing dollars and resources during these times.
Absolutely. It's all about using the marketing dollars and resources as best we can right now. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up our marketing panel, folks?
Yeah, so I would just throw out one last thing. If you are working with media companies, tap into them to understand what kind of research that they can provide you. Creating a structure and carrying through also means that you have to pivot for the time and for the situation. So leverage your partners and use your data and use their data to understand what the world looks like. Is your consumer base shifting? What are the propensities that they're tapping into right now? And don't be afraid to pivot. And nothing is static anymore, especially in the world we're in right now.